Hello, everybody. Welcome. We got microphone updated today, so I'm going to do a quick mic check. If you can hear me, give me a thumbs up in chat or say hello. First, Victor's first. What's up, Victor? I should be coming across pretty good. Hopefully louder than last time. I've come across pretty quiet before. So we got a new audio interface, so that should be a fun boost. And we will be talking about AeroSpace today. AeroSpace should be fun. Some of you may not know what it is, but there's a lot of buzz around it right now. It's a window manager replacement. We'll go deep into the weeds in the live stream, so I'm going to just let a few people kind of make their way on. And we'll get started and check it out. Fun personal news, I got me a new 3D printer. This is the P1S from Bamboo Labs. I love it. It's been really, really great so far. The build quality has been really good. I don't know yet if I'm going to do a lot of content creation on 3D printing yet, but it's been something I spent a lot of time with recently. I'm having a good time. This isn't my first printer. I have an Ender 3 before that, and it's been working fine. But this was a big upgrade, so it's been really cool to be playing around with it the last week. Yeah. All right, so no time like the present, I guess. Oh, and check it out. I have this new little animation. Ooh, we can switch now between screens. Pretty cool. So that'll be fun. Let's get everything in the right place. There we go. So AeroSpace. It's an i3-like tiling window manager for macOS. I'm a fan of i3. I've messed around with it when I've run Linux machines in the past. And for those that don't know, I didn't pull this up yet. One of my best performing videos is blazing fast. It's my best performing video is on a tool called Yabai. I don't know how to pronounce it, but yeah, it's been a long time project, but it makes you disable system integrity on your machine. And so I unfortunately left that tool behind probably over a year ago now, and I have been just using Stage Manager for quite some time. So Stage Manager is just a built-in tool that macOS offers. It did an okay job, but it wasn't a true tiling window manager. It was just an interesting way of swapping windows out. And I think it has proven useful, but it's sort of overly simplistic. So in today's video, we're going to spend some more time looking at AeroSpace and it's how to configure it. And I've mostly configured it. So I'm going to kind of go through with the fine comb and break down some of the decisions I've made and some of the pieces that I've done with it. But more importantly, I want to spend some time looking at other people's configurations and figure out if we can play around with this tool a bit more. So a huge shout out to Josen Martinez. So Joe has made a whole video on AeroSpace. It's a long one. It's 25 minutes. He goes through all of it. He goes through installing the default configuration, how to start it, how to go into binding modes, which is a big thing that I want to focus on today, and then moving things, and then a deep dive in layouts and workspaces. And there's a lot this can do. And I'll do my best to describe how it works as we go through it. But if you want to check out the whole thing and get a super deep dive into the basics, go check out Joe's video. By the way, I'm hoping to talk to him soon. I've been having a hard time. He's not really on social media. I've been trying to talk to him, so I'll have to shoot him another email here and get his attention. And me and him are going to talk shop here soon, hopefully, which I think will be fun for some of my viewers. So be on the lookout for that. That should be good. I have spent quite a long time on this guide already, probably an hour or two. Read it inside and out. I have a pretty good idea of how this works. However, I don't have any of it really tied to muscle memory yet. I don't know if you guys are like me, but anytime I change my tooling, something this integral, right, I find that I have to make some progressive changes. So at this point, as I mentioned earlier, I haven't been using Yabai for quite some time. And now that I'm switching to this tool, I'm like retraining my brain about this whole snapping window thing. And then what I like the most about this, and what I've been dealing with as a general problem, is this idea of desktops, right? And so desktops are one of those things that, let's go back. Desktops are one of those things that are very useful if you were to implement them correctly, but macOS is pretty limited. And so AeroSpace decided to do it in its own implementation. So this author implemented virtual workspaces. And so you can assign windows to workspaces, you can focus workspaces. From what I can tell, you don't create or destroy workspaces. They're just assigned to any number or letter on your keyboard. We'll go into the default bindings here, but basically, you have a workspace that you can go to via the workspace command, and then you can move a node to a workspace. And a node is just a window in macOS. So you can move to, you can take this thing and I want to put it in another workspace. And so that's the default bindings here. I'm finding that this Alt-Tab workspace back and forth is already really nice because I do use this quite a bit. I'm going to close a couple of these. However, if you know anything about macOS, you know that Command Tab is notorious for changing its order. And so changing the order is a pain. It's totally a pain. And so there's some good alternatives, and AeroSpace ships with a few of those as well. Cool. So we got some people. You moved over to AeroSpace this week. Yeah. So for me, it was last weekend is that I was messing with this and really getting to it. And sometime this week, outside of my work hours, I've been kind of messing with it here and there. But we're going to mess with it more today. By the way, Andres, what's up? Is it Camillo? Camillo, if you want to post your config, if you've put it on like GitHub, I will look at it today. So I'm going to look at other people's setups and try to get a sense of what I can take from people. And anyone else that's on chat. Andres, I tried looking up your dot files. I don't know where they are. So if you want to also share your dot files with us, you can. I don't know if you've made them public. And so I'll look through some of them today. I have a couple community members already who I've looked at their config a little bit, but I figured, why don't I just wait till live stream and we can share and talk about it together. And Camilo, I want your feedback. So if there's some tips or some useful things that you've learned here, I would like to hear from you. I'm gonna make myself a little bit bigger here today. Can we still see me? Can we hear me? Cool. Stowe, yeah. So I use Stowe as well. I recently switched to it. I think it's really great. But yeah, if you want to tell me your GitHub handle, I can always look it up. I don't know how easily YouTube lets you paste URLs. I know it's kind of a pain sometimes. But what I want to get good at and try to understand a bit more over the stream is how the node structure works. So far I've been able to like join things, and it kind of works, but not quite the way that I expected it to. So there's that. And then this whole concept of normalization and floating, yeah. So again, emulation of virtual workspaces. This is what I talked about earlier. It doesn't use macOS spaces. It uses its own virtualization and implementation of that, right? And so they already say you're limited to 16 and you can't create, delete, reorder spaces. Apple doesn't provide a public API. Yeah. So those are the limitations. I have found that animation isn't a big deal because I turn on reduced motion in macOS. If you don't have that setting on already, I highly recommend it. So it's called reduce motion, and it shows up under the display settings. Very useful, especially for us like nerds that like to be quick, right? Like the NeoVim Tmux guys, like I hope a lot of you are, and gals. Reduced motion is one of those things that I just really don't like turning off. So you don't use joins, you mainly use 2 vertical windows per screen. Yeah, that's totally fair. I find so far that I do really like the stacked accordion layout that they've called it, which, do I have any here? I don't. We have like, let's move this. Yeah. So it's kind of hard to tell, but over here on the side, you can see the windows stacked, and you'll see on this side, it may be too faint for you to pick out in stream, but it shows up here as well. And so you can switch between them, and these are all in the same window. So I could add a Finder window, and it would be the same thing where it is stacked behind each other like an accordion. So kind of a cool feature. I don't love the default bindings, but we'll spend some time with it. So let me show you what I've done. I'm still not quite used to it. So I used to bind my apps to Alt and then a letter to match it. So like, for some reason, A has stuck with me for my terminal emulator, W for web, S for my second brain, which is my note-taking app, and D for Discord, which is where I spend the most time with messaging. And so it's been a little bit funky not having those on me. And I have a lot more bound, and I ended up unbinding most of them in order to make room for AeroSpace. So I personally like the Option key or the Alt key, Meta key, right? They're not technically all the same thing, but you know, that key next to your command and between your control. I use that a lot to drive behavior on the Mac, and I use Option Shift as like a secondary layer. And so what that does for me is all of my keyboards do this. There's no clever hacking, or I actually just recently uninstalled Carabiner Elements. I was trying to mess with it again, and I'm just not really happy with its performance. I'm just too quick of a typer, and I find that it was just really buggy. It hasn't gotten any better. I do use Hammerspoon, which I'll show you. I use Option HJKL for arrow keys, which I love. So Alt HJKL, so that's just so muscle memory for me now. And when I do like a formatted layout like this, I now do Alt Shift arrows to go back and forth between the windows. So that's sort of my layout right now. You'll actually see at Kill Tmux, I have an AeroSpace config for my session manager. So when you run this, it just opens up the config file automatically. So I love that. Let's go ahead and unfold all of this. So we got like accordion values starting at login. I have seen some people mess around with this login stuff, which I do like the idea. It's like, hey, take this thing and do this with it, you know, every time I start my computer up. So definitely a good idea. I'm trying to better understand this normalization stuff. I ended up turning this one off because I wanted to use like the join command a certain way, and it was throwing an error saying, hey, you're not supposed to do that. Default root container layout. This is all pretty standard. I haven't changed it too much. For the gaps, very interesting. If you've noticed, my window, my menu bar is always hidden, and my dock is actually here on the side. It's also always hidden. So what that means is I've been using Raycast a lot for window management. I would add a little bit of gaps, and the gaps would be like 5 pixels or 6 pixels or something. And it would be around the gaps between the windows, and it would go across the edge. What I really like about AeroSpace is I can make the edges 0. And so this is literally like all of my real estate. And I was checking for like window shadows, you know, like little border shadow kind of thing that goes on with like a drop shadow on these windows. From what I can tell, it hasn't really overlapped or caused any issues visually. So that just means that I like all of my windows fill up all of the space available, and then 8 is the number that I like to create just a little bit of room between. If we, in fact, if we do another, what is it? New. There we go. I do want there to be a little bit of space. Menu, new window. There we go. Oof. Why did that happen? And it's reminding me AeroSpace is running in the background. That's fine. Weird. Yeah, so you can already see it feels kind of buggy. This may be a WesTerm window, new window thing that I set up. Yeah, that's my fault. So I might disable this for now. We'll get to this toward the end. Yeah, so 0, I like 0 a lot on the edges. There's no need for that gap for me. If you watched my WesTerm video, you'll know that I have a MacBook, and so I have the notch at the top. What's really great is if you set your background, we're going to talk about this again if you haven't heard already, wallpaper. I just set it to black. And what that does is the notch goes away. At least I have a MacBook Pro, and it's like an M2 series. So it's not the latest series, but it's a recent series. The way the screens work is when it's black, the notch is gone. You can't see it at all. It's not visible. And you already know me, and my fancy terminal emulator, WesTerm, gives me these, let's see, why does this not want to stack? I must have done something weird. Okay. Anyway, my terminal emulator has a background. And then I don't know if I want to show this. Let's close these. This is my note-taking app. It also has a background image. It's just a web-based tool, so I can just do background image cover, and I put in one of my images here. And so if I kind of want the wallpaper thing to be happening, it's WesTerm, or it's my Obsidian note-taking app that has some sort of pretty background image. So I'm not going without a background image. It's just one of those things that it's been like probably 6 months or more, or maybe a year, that I just always set black. So anyway, that's a little tip. Take it if you like it. Yeah, and so I've been trying to play around with these. This is what you were seeing. You can switch from tile to horizontal to vertical using the Alt/. And there's something weird going on where it's not working right now, and I don't know why. And then the other one is comma, where you're able to, oh, maybe these are like not normalized. I bet that's it. There we go. Yeah, see, I'm learning. They were split into 2 different trees, and so they were being treated differently. So that's fun. I don't love these yet, so I'm going to probably decide to come up with a more intuitive key binding for this. Maybe I'll follow what I'm doing with, I might follow what I'm doing with like Tmux stuff. Maybe I'll try to be more consistent there. But again, I just mentioned this. Alt-Shift, HAKL will let me focus. And then if I want the sizing to be off and I want to reset it, I do Alt-Shift-0. That one's easy to understand. Been playing around a little bit with this split opposite. So we'll open up like Finder. I think I have to join things before that one works. Yeah. So this is like, hey, split in the opposite direction. I don't know yet if I like this. So I will probably be, is this helpful? How does it work? I don't actually know fully. The flatten thing was like Alt-Shift-Control-0 is like, let me reset everything. It's like a Control-Alt-Delete kind of thing. And then it feels a little funny, but like on the keyboard, right, you got these 3 keys all together. And so they're pretty easy to hold together. This is an Atom Lego build keyboard. It's kind of a fun one. But all my boards are pretty much the same layout, except the Moonlander, I guess, is a bit different. But I find that holding these 3 together is pretty good, pretty useful. Not perfect. Andres, you've been using it to have more intuitive workspaces. Yeah, each app goes into one. Yeah. So are you doing like mnemonics, where it's like the music player goes into M or something like that? That's been my approach for some time now with my key bindings. And I'm still deciding if I want to do that with the workspaces. TBD. Resizing, you were seeing me do that. It's Alt-Shift and plus and minus. And then I was messing with 9 and 8, which is next to 0, as like heavier resizes. I haven't found a good use for 8 and 9 yet, so that one kind of felt good. I'll reset that. I feel like I need to move this guy over so you guys can see, and we can make this bigger. Look at this, it's working. It's working. Cool. So these are the workspaces I've chosen for now. So these are like apps that feel, I'm trying to find a way to call this. I feel like I want to call them anchor links, or like, not links, anchor applications in which I want other applications to work their way around it. This is something I'm conceptualizing right now and still working out a decent language for, but like the terminal being workspace A, as of right now, it's not there. So let's move it. Yeah, so if we were to move it, workspace A, right? Then if you wanted to like add Finder, Finder gets attached to this, no problem. And when you close it, it goes away. Same might be for like Raycast AI. So Raycast AI also can work as a window, which I'm really liking. And so again, you can kind of put something in and then take it out. But you have all these anchor points. So like if I want to go to like music, I would hit Option P, and Option P would bring up music, right? And so I'm still able to say like, these are my anchor points. I know that there are specific applications that are of more importance to me. And so I kind of want to anchor them on these specific workspaces. However, because I don't show, we haven't talked about this yet, but in the menu bar, they like to show you the current workspace that you're in. There's like an active, like you can see, if you can read it, if it's legible, there's an A. And if I switch to W, we can see up here, it switches to W. I don't intend on bringing my menu bar back, but there's a sort of a minor limitation here of like, I don't know what workspace I'm on. So the first week of using this application, that's been one frustrating point, is like, where am I? I don't really want to go up to the menu bar to figure that out. If I press a couple keystrokes, I kind of get a sense really quickly where I am. But I will say that, like, I find that I do use the terminal and the web together. And so there's probably an opportunity here to not do it this way. I use so this might not work. So we're just kind of documenting. And so similarly, I personally have preferred that if I move a window, I want to go to where that window got moved. The way that works here with AeroSpace is you use array notation with the angle brackets, the square brackets, and you can say, I want to move the node to this place. And then the second command is I want to focus on that. So fairly straightforward and intuitive, the TOML language that he's worked with. And if you don't know, my Tmux Session Manager, Sesh, was also written with TOML configuration. So it's feeling familiar for the most part. It's making sense to me. However, I don't know which workspaces I want. Andres, I'm curious your strategy for which workspaces are worth having. Many people do this, where they have like numbered. And if you watched my original blazing fast window manager tooling, I thought of this as like 1 is primary, 2 is secondary, 3 is like tertiary, right? And so like depending on my current focused activity would drive what position I'm at. And so that's been kind of useful in the past. So I could always say like to do revisit primary, secondary workspaces. Right, I used to do this. So we'll see if that's worth revisiting. Let's just keep going. So Alt-Tab, showing that one off earlier, I really like that. Alt-Shift-Tab is my way of moving this workspace to another monitor. Now, we haven't talked about this yet, but these virtual workspaces can be defined, I believe, per monitor, but the way that I have it configured, I'd have to figure out if there's a specific configuration that determines how this works. Monitor per monitor. So, oh, interesting. You can actually name different patterns depending on which monitor you're on. That's cool. Okay, so like if I was to move this to the other screen, what actually happens is the virtual workspace gets moved and lives on a different monitor. So if you deal with multiple monitors, like 1, 2, 3, that would be a really great use case of like put workspace 1 on your first monitor, put workspace 2 on your second monitor, and if you're a multi-monitor person. I really only use multi-monitors during live stream so that I can read your messages while I'm doing things. But during the workday, I have a studio display. It's big, it's lots of pixels, it's crisp, and I just do everything off of one monitor. That's the way that I prefer to work, especially with window tiling managers like this, right? It's like, why do I need multiple monitors? Yeah, and so the last piece of this is, well, I guess there's 2 last pieces, is this idea of like modes. And this is the part that I want to play around with a little bit more today. This is called a service mode. And so you activate it with Alt-Shift semicolon, and it sort of like becomes an active state, right? Kind of like, I guess like Vim has similar things with like modes and bindings, right? Like visual mode and X mode and things like that. So it's similar. And then after that, you have like a new layer where you can bind specific keys to that mode. So in this case, if I want to flatten the work tree, I could do Alt-Shift semicolon, and then I would hit R. And R would do the thing, and then we're going to say immediately escape back to mode main. So you're like resetting the layout. So pretty cool. It's something that hasn't been triggered in my brain yet. I don't understand it. I'm like, what is this mode thing? Oh yeah, that exists. So I think it's worth playing around with more. Andres, is that something you've used? Have you started using modes yet? Because I think that the real power in this tool is that I don't need to bind everything to the top layer. And I'm thinking I'm going to have a resize mode, probably. That's my mindset right now. Yeah, you're not really using it either. Yeah, so I'm figuring the power in it is there. I think when I start dealing with conflicts where it's like, man, I really want to do this, but I don't want to do that, I think it's worth playing around with. And maybe there's some sort of like, I'm thinking about it right now as we're talking. There's like a move command, maybe. There's like a move mode. So maybe to do add move mode to free up more Alt-Shift main bindings. Because I've used Alt-Shift a lot for lots of things like raycast. I really like using it for raycast. So like Alt-E is emojis, Alt C is my clipboard manager. Alt Shift C is my snippets. And so I use a lot of Alt something bindings for hotkeys for lots and lots and lots of productivity features, not just window management. And so it's my way of having everything one keystroke away. But I think right now what I need to play around with is this idea of how do I want to mess with this? Robert, I like it. So Robert says he uses P for productivity. He uses M for media, B for browser, T for terminal. Yeah, no, I love that. So I stuck with WASD, right? I was talking about that earlier. A is terminal. It used to be Alacrity, but I ended up just keeping it as terminal. S is second brain, D is Discord, W is web. So I like to come up with some of those things. WASD is all left-handed, and as like a gamer, it's like a common set of 3, bindings. And then the other hand is like M for messaging. So I've now sort of gotten better at all of my messaging apps are in one space, and I use the tiling manager now to use up the real estate better. P is for player, so like music player. What else? I was using G for Google Chrome because I use Google Chrome only for my streaming software, so that when I do this, I actually go to the browser during live streams. So I use a separate browser just for that, but I don't have that bound right now. What I was playing around with is this new engine called Godot. That's a game engine, so I've been trying to learn some video game development. So I was like, okay, cool, that is its own dedicated app. So like, let's try that. And same with Blender. This is supposed to be Blender. So I've been learning some 3D modeling as well to help with the game development and my 3D printing. And so I've been like, what are like these anchor apps? So that's been my mindset. V for video editing. Y for like the year. Calendar is like year. And so the year has stuck in my head. Yeah, so this is all like super relative, right? It's all up to the beholder to come up with whatever mnemonics work for you. But yeah, the great thing is most of us have, those 26 letters, and we've got another 1 through 0, another 10 letters to deal with. And all the special symbols, for the most part, are bindable. They talk about it up here. Special keys. So this stuff is all supported by this tool. So yeah, a lot of possibilities. And then finally, very last piece, and then we're going to dive into some other configs. You can have like events. So like when a window is detected, if the Apple ID or the app ID is Discord, then I want to move this to the workspace, like automatically. Like I don't even want to mess with it. Now, I actually think that this is probably a good idea. Can I do this? For now, layout, floating layout style, window is comment normally supported in. Oh, okay. Fine. So they don't want me to do that yet. So when an on window detect is triggered. All right, so we'll see if that's one of those things that shows up or not. But like S for Obsidian, B for Blender, O for OBS are all ones that I've set up already. I also need to make sure. This is where I ran into a conflict. I like Workspace O, but Alt-Shift-O is for my outputs. So I switch my speakers and my headphones and all that like all the time. Like I'm switching all the time, like every day I'm changing between output devices. And then I is input devices. So I do something similar here. And I don't really want to get rid of those. I don't know what I'd change them to, but I don't really want to change them. So I need to probably rethink that. that may be one of those things where like, I was thinking like the split keyboard. I've thought about this before, like 5, 6, 7, 8, that kind of thing could be secondary monitor, and then the primary monitor would be primarily 5 workspaces. And if I'm working with more than 5 at a time, it's typically a red flag. I'm curious, Andres, what you think. How many workspaces is enough to be productive and useful? Because you said 1 per, so I could see that number being kind of high for you. But for me, I don't really want a million windows opened and all of them to be bound to separate workspaces. There's part of me that's like, I kind of want to be able to just think about a handful of workspaces at a time. So that's my mindset right now, because I do think that it's worth exploring my intent on how this system works. Because again, I used Yavai for years and years and years and years, and then I shifted back to something really simple. Yeah, and so it is something interesting to think about. You don't need the Alt-Shift-O if you have the window going automatically. Well, that is fair, but as of right now, today in this live stream, I want to send windows to wherever OBS is for streaming. So I'm streaming, there's a window that I don't want you guys to see, so I want to purposefully send it there ahead of time before I start my stream. And at the same time, I wouldn't want that to be happening during the stream after the stream, I wouldn't want the same feature because again, there may be applications that are just useful in their default state when I'm using my computer privately. So it's one of those things that like different circumstances require different workflows, which is always the case, right? I think it's always the case. All this stuff is contextual. You have only 7 workspaces and left the numbers for the ones that you don't really use. Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, 7 seems like a nice kind of spot, especially if it's like support material, right? Like messaging or, I don't know, database related thing or something like that could all live kind of lower in the numbers. Cool. So I think we're just going to play around with other people's configs. I want to take a look at Joe Zun's. I think his is pretty default. And I think he did that because he partnered with the creator here, Nikita. So shout out, we're going to follow Nikita. And as we did that, we got the star. Make sure to go star it. Everybody go star it right now if you haven't already. Let's show some love to this project. It is in beta, just as a heads up. So it's not claiming to be public beta. It's not meant to be completely stable. It's not promised anyway. But anyway, he's on here, YouTube guide that he built, which I'm curious. How do we do this? We do the blame. The guide 3 days ago. Oh yeah, let's go. So very cool. I love to see partnerships with content creators. But I think a lot of his config, as what I'm alluding to, is probably going to be pretty vanilla in the way the default config works. I'm going to give you guys a couple tips here as well, if you're not doing this already. Yeah, this all looks like the basics. So I'm guessing he just uses it the way the creator used it, which is fine. Let's talk about a couple things. First, under dot files, under your auto commands, you can totally just add this. Haha. So this is called an auto command. And what we're saying is after we've written the file, this is a hook for when a buffer is written after the fact, the post, right? After the pattern is aerospace.toml, then I want to run this command, and the command is aerospace reload config. Now you can optionally put in a silent flag. So you can execute something, and this execute command can be run silently. If you do that, you will not get a pop-up, but I will get a pop-up. Message, AeroSpace reload config. So I love this. I don't know why I wouldn't do this. If you break something, you're a developer, like, right? Most of the people that are here probably programmers. I wouldn't expect this to be an issue for you, but it's a huge time saver. Huge time saver. So I do this with Tmux, Yazi. I did it with Yabai, but I don't use Yabai anymore. So we're just gonna which it might be worth it to look at my Yabai bindings and see if there's anything to learn from it. Same with SKHD. So something interesting to play with. And then the AeroSpace one, super, super, super great. This has been a huge time saver for me. The second thing I'll mention is I would highly recommend that in Mason that you install Taplow. So Taplow offers, let's go back. It offers tooling for, what else does it do? Configuration, it does validation, and it does formatting, and it does language server stuff. So we don't have, I should probably ask about autocomplete LSP support for this file name. So I think that would be a good idea. I could tell them how that works. I've been meaning to add that to Sesh soon so that like you could autocomplete and type things out. And like, if this is wrong, we could like throw an LSP error that says, hey, this isn't something that I'm expecting in this config file. Maybe you're looking for something else. But you'll notice like here, if I indent this weird and I hit save, it's going to format it. And if I have code comments after the fact, like this, it will actually format the code comments and line them up. It lines them up, I believe, based off of the groupings. So like these 3 lines are active. If we were to break these down a bit more and sort them, the formatting of the comments would also be really nice. So that's really helpful. I don't think there's much definition on here. Yeah, but you could add definitions to all this. So anyway, adding a good TOML LSP auto formatter kind of thing works great. I don't know if it's just a TOML thing. I think I'm using the language enabler tooling from LazyVim. So if you just want to go to LazyVim, go to Lazy Extras, and search for TOML, you can enable it. And you should get most everything you need in order to be functional in a TOML file. So that's a huge thing that I don't think people mention when you're introduced to TOML, but it offers all the same features as other popular languages. Was there something else I wanted to share? I guess the only thing worth telling you right now before we dive in is my hammer spoon config is super simple right now. I just have, when I hit H, I want to trigger left, JKL, so these are my arrow keys. So again, I use this a lot in like Raycast and even autocomplete sometimes. I'll use HJKL with an alt modifier to run arrow keys. I kind of would love to get rid of hammer spoon. So if anyone knows of a way that I could do something like this with a more lightweight tool, not carabiner elements, I don't want to use it. But anything else that I may not know about, let me know. But I think that there's more to be seen from some of these other configurations. So this one is my buddy Victor. Victor was here earlier. Victor, you still here? Victor, we're going to look at your TOML file, bro. So he's got this homebrew borders thing, which I don't even know what this is. I actually meant to look it up. let's go to dot files. So let's do brew search. Actually, I've been trying to use Homebrew more here. Borders. What does borders do? Borders? Maybe you can tell us if you're here today. I'm not quite sure what borders is for, but it's some sort of like active windows are colored, and it looks like maybe it's like a yabai kind of thing where the current window is got a shape around it, which is pretty cool. It would be interesting to play with that. Non-empty workspace root containers layout on startup smart. Do I have that one? I don't even know if I have this. Yeah, I wasn't even sure what this is. Maybe it's an old thing. So I guess we're going to leave that like that. All right, cool. Default roots, root containers auto, normalization. So he set them both to true, which I think is the default. Got his gaps. His focus and his moves are a little bit simpler than mine. Full screen is F. I think that is a good idea. I might have to renegotiate. Oh no, I can tell you guys about home row, but I made some changes to some of my bindings when I did all this. S, W, and E, interesting. So this is transferring from i3. So I'm guessing if Victor's not around, Victor probably maybe had some background in i3. So I think anyone who has used i3 will find this refreshing, that they can try their best to recreate that layout. In fact, there is, I think, a default i3-like config file that you can rip from directly instead of having to start with this AeroSpace default. So something worth playing around with. He uses control numbers for workspaces. That's interesting. Reload config is just bound. Yeah, I prefer to the auto command. I don't think I need to set this explicitly. Resizing is a move bind. This is what I probably will do. I think I will mess with this. Although I liked resize auto. It's funny that he's doing resize, explicitly width and height based off of what you push. But I think I like the auto. So what I mean by that is you can have your resizing. Where's my resizing? Be called smart. So if you increase it or decrease it, it decreases it based off of the window that you're at. So if I do plus, it grows, minus, it shrinks. And then if I change the layout to this, plus will make it bigger or minus will make it smaller. So definitely a smart, hence the name, smart idea of being able to do it that way. So I'm a fan of that. But this is a great idea. So he does WesTerm on 1, Arc main browser on 2. Rambox, I looked this up. It's like a messaging app, apparently. Like you can consolidate all your messages all into one application, which is an interesting idea. He has that on 3, and then Obsidian on 4. So he is very much terminal, browser, messaging, note-taking. Boom, those are the 4. And I would think everything else after that, there you go, 6 is music. So he is playing around with this idea of 6. So Andres, that's not that far from you. And then we can force assignment. So this is the other thing. Maybe this is what I should play around with for streaming. Maybe this would be really useful. You can force which workspace you want to assign to which monitor. And from what I can tell, 1 is the primary monitor that macOS defines. So macOS settings, if you go to your displays section, what is it, displays, right? You can determine with the arrange where this bar is. So this bar is your main window, and then everything after that is secondary. And I don't know, after that, I don't know exactly what it determines 2 and 3 would be, but I know for sure 1 would be determined by the OS. At least that's how I would expect to see it. So I think this could be a really good path forward, perhaps, doing the whole primary, secondary, third kind of thing. I was using 1 for 1Password, and 2 for two-factor authentication codes, which there's a really useful Raycast workspace for that, or extension. So I don't know. I don't know if that's the best path, but lots of good stuff here. Very nice, Victor. Next one is Dolov. So if you guys don't know Dolov, he's one of my community members, and he created the GH- project. And so GH- is a really cool TUI for GitHub. So you can look at PRs, you can look at issues, you can investigate like descriptions and tags and all sorts of things. You can sort by date. Very, very useful. I love this tool. I use it every day. And he's been using AeroSpace for like a month now or something. He says he's been using it for longer than just a week, like me and a couple others. So he's got this after startup command. He's doing this as well, borders. So this must be something that I'm missing out on, perhaps. If I run this, is it going to exist already? He's calling it borders. Victor called it here. Let's see if I have it. I don't know where it comes from. Does anyone know where this borders thing comes from? That's funny. Is it? Yeah, I don't know what borders is. Borders, CLI, macOS. A lightweight window border system for macOS. Yeah. This is cool. Is this what all the cool kids are doing? Borders, activate color. Yep. I think this is it. So why don't we try it? Let's just go to .files. And then you bootstrap it, right? With Brew, you can run it as a service. Do I have any Brew services running anymore? Interesting. So it's gonna exist, but like, is it gonna borders? You have to like define it, don't you? Configuring its appearance. Okay. Borders RC. We'll play around with that a little. Nice. And Bruce services restart borders. I don't know if I'm going to have issues without any spacing. Remember that I told you guys earlier, my long rant about how not having any spaces was not a big deal. It probably is a big deal if interesting. All right, so then that means my active window. Oh, I might need to, but it's working. Oh, I see. Is it not working? Boom. Brew services, restart borders. I don't know if I love this, so I'll have to play around with, like, do I want this feature? But it seems like both of them like it. What's it say? Oh yeah, man borders, you can learn more about it. So something to reflect on. Do I want this feature? I think it could be useful, especially if it's fairly subtle. But it seems that multiple people are liking it. He also sets both to true, so there's something about normalization I might need to rethink. Oh yeah, he also did this. He turned on padding to 0 so that the accordion feature, it just doesn't do an accordion. It just stacks them on top of each other, which could be great if you're looking for lots of real estate. It is not great if you don't know the orientation of your accordion or which window you're currently on that's relative to other windows, right? That's not going to be clear if you get rid of it. But perhaps that's fine, or he's focusing windows some other way. Yeah, it does seem distracting, Andres, and I might not use it for that reason. He's got lots of spacing, good for him. He wants some breathing room, I get it. Inherit environmental variables. If you don't touch exec section, and then your environmental variables will fall back to this by passing in the path. Okay, I get it. So that's something to be aware of. I don't think I'm going to spend too much time overthinking this section, but it's good to know. Possible letters. So he does slash for switching layouts, comma, and that's what I've been doing. And then alt space for tiles. I use alt space for Raycast AI because I use command space for Raycast. So that one I wouldn't change. I really like that binding. Alt Shift F is a good idea though for full screen. That might be one I just rip immediately. Let's go to see my brain. My brain already hurts. There we go. Let's go to arrow and then Alt Shift F. Yeah, so I'm not really using that one. Cool. So if I have like Finder, I can make it full screen. But I wouldn't bind it to F. I'll show you guys more. I didn't talk about it yet. I don't want this to be F. Maybe I'll do, I had a more complicated combination over here. Where did I put it? Here we go. Control Alt Shift F is not going to be taken. I don't think I'll use this as much. I'm getting pretty good with my tiling window managers, so that may not be something I use much, but it is worth calling out. Agus, what's up? Agus is here, guys. We are talking about AeroSpace, macOS tiling window manager. So it's one of those things you pull up something up and you can change the layout. You can change the orientation. You can move things around. What I've been trying to figure out better is how to like shift things around, which I haven't spent a lot of time on stream talking about that yet. But yeah, it's been cool. So he's doing the same. He's just doing the defaults here, moving things, focusing things, resizing things. And then I liked his approach here. He does what I used to do with Raycast, which is no sesh today. No, I figured we'd just do this. I'm almost done with sesh v2. We're going to ship it here in the next 2 weeks or so. And I'll start getting more feedback once it's live for everybody. But yeah, I was getting a little tired of Go on the live stream. So Dolev here has been taking the alt character approach to focus on specific windows. So I for kitty, M for male, O for obsidian, T for task, right? For tick tick. And so again, super mnemonic, super specific to his workflow. And then for some reason, workspace V is one that he likes to use. And so he's bound it to that. And then alt shifts do all of the moving. Now, I feel like there's a little bit of mismatch here. He's probably left stuff on that doesn't need to be left on, or maybe he uses it in some other way that I'm not seeing. But I think what I wanted to focus on in his config is this. I guess he's doing the same thing too. This is all pretty standard stuff. And then his window detections are for all the same workspaces we were just talking about. Now, I think I'll probably go this approach again because I'm so used to saying Alt A gives me my terminal. And if I go and move this to the other workspace, right, and then I hit Alt A, I don't go to the terminal, and that's a problem for my brain. It definitely messes with me. So I think I'm gonna have to figure out if that's worth the trouble. I'm finding right now that I can work outside of my normal patterns slightly here and there, and it's not a big deal. And then I can move things back to where they were. So that's sort of the decision to be made right now, is what feels right. Because it's new doesn't mean that it's wrong, right? Because I push a binding and it doesn't do what I expect it to immediately doesn't mean it's a bad binding. It just means that I need to spend enough time with it to decide if it's not the most effective for me. Because I've sort of leaned heavily on the overly efficient side, and I think that I may play around with maybe a service binding mode or something to be a little bit more strategic about like, hey, if I'm going to move something, or if I'm going to resize something, or if I'm going to shift the tree structure or something, maybe I go into a certain binding mode and can play around with it. Let's see. And I was going to shout out my buddy Brandon Oswell. He's got a YouTube channel as well, and he gave me a lot of help with like hammer spoon specific logic. He still does a lot of his stuff this way through hammer spoon. And he has a lot of layout stuff through Yabai, which is his layout manager of choice. And then he does some other stuff with applications. He very similarly, V for video, D for Discord, F for Finder. He maps everything to individual shortcut letters, like we've been mostly talking about today. And I kind of had this for some time. What I did like about Raycast is, let's do a simple one like, what's term, right? So you can actually open up configurations and you can say like, I want to record Alt Shift something, right? We'll do like this. Manage TMX session. Okay, I can't do that one. W, right? And so then when you hit that, it'll focus the application. But more importantly, when you hit it a second time, it actually hides the application. So if I go back to the workspace, the window is hidden. I was using this feature heavily for a very long time because what Stage Manager does is anytime you hide a window, it would replace it typically, I think pretty consistently, with whatever the last application was. So I would just say, oh, I'm going to pull this thing up. I want to do something with it. And I'm going to hit the same binding a second time, and it's going to go away. And all that would do is bring back up whatever I was doing before. So it felt really intuitive and simple to sort of bring something into view and then repeat the same action to take it out of view, and it would drop back in what I was doing before. So I hope that makes sense. But that was a really, so now we got a wes term. Oh, that was my wes term config. Boom, wes term. And so I can tell so far that AeroSpace really doesn't like when you hide windows, because it's just not there. And you have to bring it up by bringing that window back somehow explicitly. There's no workspace kind of logic that can do it. And in the case of me hiding the window, right, with like Command H, when I hide the window, which is interesting because it did move to a different place. Yeah, and even bring it back to a new workspace, right? It doesn't live in the virtual workspace anymore when you hide it. That's intentional. That was a design decision made by the AeroSpace developer, right? Which is fine, but then you have to like manually move things around. Again, if you hide it, you leave that workspace, I guess, because it's the last window that was open. I'm not quite sure the exact reasoning for that. And when you bring it back, it will go back to wherever you are, not where you want to be. So something to think about. Something to just to noodle on for as I use this. I don't think originally my idea was like, let me try this, let me see what its quirks are. But part of me already sees the benefit of bringing a tiling window manager back into my life, because I was doing the one screen thing for a while. And the moment that I wanted to resize or bring together multiple elements or something, I did notice that Stage Manager sucked because you couldn't do it with the keyboard. You have to physically move your mouse, and it would only work on this side, and you have to drag windows in, and then it would be fine. It would be no issue. So I definitely don't think going back to Stage Manager is the path. I think a lot of this was written in Xcode, Swift. So there's an opportunity here to perhaps look into this more. So there's an Xcode project, and this is all written in Xcode apparently. Script. We didn't really spend any time looking at this project yet. The CLI, I'm always curious how the CLI works. He just assigns it. There's some sort of client, it looks like, perhaps, that this spins up, which I think is the case because AeroSpace lives, doesn't it live up here? I thought it lived up here. Maybe it doesn't. AeroSpace. There's like no official window for it yet. Quit applications, AeroSpace. Yeah, so like the way that it like runs isn't super intuitive yet. So it would be interesting to find out if there's some more obvious way to do that. And then I will talk about this. I forgot to mention it earlier. I hit F to use a tool called Vimium that lets me focus in on things on my screen. It's like AG. What I have found is that I do want like a music player. So when my music player's up, this is another great one where if I now hit Alt F, I'm training my brain that F is to find something. So Alt F lets me select anything on here. So like I can go home, or I could go back to recently added, and then Alt Shift F gives me bindings. So I can hit like 3, and I can actually scroll through this window. GG works, capital G works, which is pretty cool. I don't think Control F works. But D works, up works, U and D are my way up and down. So again, very cool that I can shout out to Hot Moms Club, very cool artist that I know from San Diego. Yeah, so it's been cool. This works on any application. So if we go to Discord, right, I can do the same thing, right? And I'll probably purchase a license here, but look at all these things I could click, right? There's a lot of things to interact with. We can do like raycasts, right? And so it's been really cool to be able to scroll around. It's not perfect. It doesn't work on every application, but it's called Home Row. Home Row app. I think someone bought it recently, and so the development cycle has gone up a little bit. The website's got a nice fresh paint. Yeah, I'll probably buy this. It is technically free, but it tells you every now and then, hey, you should probably buy it. But anyway, very cool product. This has been really useful. It's in combination with AeroSpace. I'm finding it to be very refreshing shift to get around. And so that's it. This was super fun. I was going to go about an hour today, and we're a little bit after. So I didn't see any big questions. No one had too much to say today, but we were just sort of exploring another one of those exploratory streams. And Andres, you said Vimium's been a game changer. Yeah, I have a blog post from like 7 years ago or something about Vimium. So I've been a longtime fan. This is super fun. Please be on the lookout for Sesh. So Sesh version 2 is coming. It will be here at some point in the next 2 weeks. I think I'm going to set an official date. I haven't done it yet. Should we do it? I think probably like a Friday will be my thinking. I think the end of the month. Yeah. So like Labor Day weekend, a new video game comes out, Star Wars Outlaws. So I might be playing that. But I think that's a reasonable deadline for me to launch this thing and get it out there. So it might be sooner. It might be a little bit sooner, but that's my deadline to all of you. If you want to beta test it, I have a branch out now that you can do that. If you want to talk AeroSpace or macOS or Go development or NeoVim or any of those things, join our Discord server. So if you go to joshpodeski.com, you'll see a Discord button at the top of the website, and you should be able to click on that and join the server. We like to have conversations throughout the week about this kind of stuff. And I will be making another YouTube video soon. There's been some demand in my YouTube comments, people asking for certain things. So if you have any ideas, feel free to go to the Discord server or just message me privately if you'd like, and we can talk about ideas and things to do. And as always, I always appreciate all of you being here, and I will see you next week.